Michael, again, welcome. We are indebted to your appearances here every month. I have a recurring question, and it's recurring because I haven't found a satisfactory answer yet. And it's a two-part question. I'll make it brief. From what is the origin of Maya, of the dream, of the drama we're participating in right now? The true origin eludes me. I've asked 5 people, probably you over the last couple of years, and I get 5 different responses to it, all of which kind of, sort of, maybe make sense, but they don't quite feel satisfying. And the other question is, if I'm to believe what I'm told is the truth, and I think we've discussed this here before, maybe not in much detail, that I am the writer of the dream, that self writes, that on this Sunday, I'm going to be sitting before this panel of astute Ramana followers. And then after that, I'm going to have breakfast or whatever, you know, as the play's written out, I'm the author of the play. If that's true, or any part of it's true, why cannot I write a happy resolution to the dream? Wave my magic wand and write down the author of the dream hereby says nobody is to suffer any longer. Sorry for 2 convoluted questions, but that's
no, they're both very good questions. The first question there's a very simple answer. You ask, what is the origin of Maya? You are the origin of Maya. And if you ask, what is Maya? You are Maya. That is, you as ego. That is, Bhagavan has said, Maya is nothing but ego. What is the origin of ego? Well, the ego obviously originates from what actually exists. Because only, as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uludunapadu, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Everything there means everything other than ourselves, what actually exists. Because what we actually are never comes into existence and never ceases to exist. It's eternal, unchanging, and self-shining. That is our fundamental awareness, I am. That is what we actually are. So since everything else comes into existence only when ego rises and ceases to exist when ego ceases to exist, ego cannot come from anywhere other than from ourselves, from what we actually are. What we actually are is the pure existence awareness, Satchit. That is our fundamental, what we experience as our fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am, that is Satchit. That is what alone is real. So ego arises only from that. So in other words, it arises only from ourself as we actually are. So, as I say, ego is Maya, and ego originates from what we actually are. So, but the answer to your question, from where does ego originate? It originates from you as you actually are. And if you had asked, what is Maya? The answer would be you, but not you as you actually are, but you as ego. So Maya is nothing but ego. It's only in the view of ego, but all other things seem to exist. So the fundamental, that is everything is Maya, but everything exists in whose view? In the view of ego. So what the Maya essentially is only ego. Does that adequately answer the first part of your question?
More or less. And I promise this is the last thing I'll comment on it because I don't want to take any more time.
No, by all means, let's get to the bottom of this. This is a very important subject. So there's no problem about going into it more deeply.
Ego comes wholly from I am.
Yes.
I am wholly all there is. I am is all potent, all powerful.
Yes.
In that there is nothing else to reign over. Why, in its infinite wisdom, would the I am allow ego to become a bubble that goes like this? It grows and grows.
I am is not doing. I am is being. Sat means being. Its nature is pure being. It never does anything. All doing only occurs in the view of ego. So though ego rises from I am is not the cause for the rising of ego. Ego is the first cause. It is the cause of everything else. But it itself has no cause. If it had a cause, it wouldn't be the first cause. So that's why Bhagavan says, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. So causality begins with the rising of ego. So we can't find any cause for ego. That's one way of saying it. Another way of explaining the same thing is, that is, people often used to ask Bhagavan, how did Maya come into existence? Why did Maya come into existence? Or Bhagavan, they understood what Bhagavan said, but Maya is nothing but ego. How did ego come into existence? Why did ego come into existence? Bhagavan said, how and why are invalid questions. If you want to investigate ego, don't try to investigate how or why. Try to investigate who or what. What is this ego? If you investigate ego to see what it actually is, you will see there's no such thing as ego. When you see there's no such thing as ego, the question how or why becomes redundant. That is, egos, we seem to be ego only so long as we're looking away from ourselves. When we look back at ourselves, there's no such thing as ego to be found. In verse 25 of Uludanapu, Bhagavan says, Tedinal otum piticum. If sought, it takes flight. That means if we look for ego, it's nowhere to be found. It's like the snake, right? The illusory snake. The rope seems to be a snake only so long as we don't look at it carefully enough. If we look at it carefully enough, we see there's no snake at all. What is there is only a rope. Likewise, if we look at ego carefully enough, we'll see it is not ego, it is just pure awareness, pure I am. And therefore, it has never come into existence as ego, because it always exists as I am. This is why Maya is said to be anivachaniya. Anivachaniya is usually translated as inexpressible. But what the deeper implication of anivachaniya is it's inexplicable. We cannot explain. We cannot give a reason or a cause for Maya, because Maya, namely ego, is the cause for the whole appearance of causality, of cause and effect.
Then you understand why somebody like me, and presumably a few others, are in a quandary, only because it would help if we would know literally the origin of it. And you said two things, which I respect and follow as the best I can. We don't know the cause of ego, and Ramana says, don't go looking for the cause of ego. So I respect that. I just don't understand it.
Okay. Can you explain to me how or why was the son of a barren woman born?
You mean Jesus?
No. Mary, that was virgin birth. She's not a barren woman. A barren woman means a woman with no child. So why or how was the son of a barren woman born?
No, I can't explain that.
Why can't you explain it?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know the explanation of it, but because
the explanation is very simple. There's no such thing as the son of a barren woman.
Oh, there you go.
Because if she's barren, she has no son. If she's got a son, she's not barren. So it's a logical impossibility. So looking for a cause for the son of a barren woman is meaningless, because there is no son of a barren woman. Likewise, looking for the cause of ego is futile, because there is no such thing as ego. Ego seems to exist only when we don't look at it. When we look at it, there's no such thing as ego at all.
That all makes sense.
Yes. But it makes sense that this is as far as our mind can grasp. But obviously there are limitations on our capacity to understand, because what is the instrument we use to understand? It is intellect. And who is using intellect to understand? It is ego. Both are finite, both are unreal. So we can understand everything in everything that appears. We can at least try to understand with our science and our history and our geography and politics and everything, and social sciences. We try to understand everything. We can go on for all eternity trying to understand things other than ourselves. And it will seem we're always making progress. But if we try to understand ourselves, that is ego, we cannot understand it, because it's got no substance. Bhagavan described ego in verse 25 of Ulunaptu as a formless phantom. It's formless because it's got no form of its own. It's a phantom because it's got no substance of its own. It borrows its form from the body. It borrows its substance from Sat-Chit, but it is neither the body nor is it Sat-Chit. So ego is as unreal as the son of a barren woman, but seems to be real so long as we look away from ourselves at anything other than ourselves. Because who is aware of anything other than ourselves? It's only ego. So long as we're aware of anything other than ourselves, we seem to be ego. But if we look at ourselves to see where is this ego, what is this ego, we find no such thing.
Thank you, Michael.
That is, these teachings are not given to us to give neat explanations. The explanations are useful up to a certain point, but there is a point at which all explanations fail. The purpose of these teachings is not to provide us with a neat philosophy, though this is a very deep philosophy, and most for those who are ready to go into it and think deeply, this is the most satisfying philosophy there is. But philosophy is not the purpose. What is the purpose of philosophy? It has to have a practical implication. A philosophy with no practical implication is useless. So all of Bhagavan's philosophy is focused on practice, on what is the practical implication of this. So we are taught all this for one reason and one reason alone, in order to turn our attention back to ourselves, to investigate who am I. Who am I is the first real question in philosophy. It's also the last real question, because the only way to find the answer to who am I, the intellect cannot tell us who we are. By any amount of reasoning, we cannot know what we are. We can give names. We can say, oh, we are Brahman, we are Satchidananda, but those are just words. Those are just ideas. That is not what we actually are. By means of intellect, we can never grasp what we actually are, because the very nature of ego is the false awareness, I am this body. It's a false awareness because the body is not what we actually are. So long as we're aware of ourselves as I am this body, I am Ted or I am Michael, we cannot know what we actually are. So the whole purpose of all of this philosophy is to show us how we can find the answer to who am I. What is the answer to who am I? We ourselves have the answer to who am I. So we need to look within to see what we actually are. So all of Bhagavan's teachings and all of Vedanta, if understood correctly, has one purpose and one purpose alone: to direct our attention back to ourselves. Because only when we look deep within ourselves does Maya dissolve. Is Maya found to be non-existent? When Maya is found to be non-existent, everything is non-existent. What exists is only what always exists, namely I am. Everything other than I am is just Maya. As Bhagavan often said, Maya means Ya Ma. Ya is a feminine form of what, and Ma is not. So what is not, or she who is not. In other words, the very name of Maya indicates that it doesn't actually exist. So how does what doesn't exist come into existence? that is like asking, how was the son of a barren woman born? It's meaningless. So that's why Bhagavan said, it was for a good reason, but Bhagavan said that how or why, we can ask how and why about everything else, because everything else has a cause. But the one thing that has no cause is ego. Because it is no thing. It is not a thing at all. So there's no, what is the cause of non-existence? There is no cause of non-existence because non-existence doesn't exist. So ego is wholly unreal. And everything else depends for its seeming existence upon this wholly unreal ego. So all that is required is not, we will never find answers that will wholly satisfy our ego, our intellect, or the ego who's operating through the intellect. But the only satisfactory answer is to lose ourself in ourself, as ourself. In other words, to remain as we actually are without rising as ego. That is the answer to all questions.
I want to guess that's all I need to hear because it's very satisfying. And furthermore, I think it renders my second question moot.
I've forgotten now what your second question was.
if ego comes from the I am, and I am the I am, and I wrote the script of this play, why can I not write a happy ending?
Okay, right. Well, no, let's go through this because some more points may come out of this. That is, when you say you're the author, I am is not the author, but I am doesn't do anything. As I said, I am is not a cause of anything. I am is sometimes referred to as the cause, but in Indian philosophy, they distinguish different types of causes. There's the upadana karana, which is the material cause or substantial cause. In other words, what is the material cause of a table is the wood. So in other words, the substance of which something is made, that is one type of cause. But there is also what is called nimitta karana, which is the active cause. The carpenter is the active cause of the table. The wood is the material cause of the table. So I am, or Brahman, is the material cause of all this, in that all this is nothing but I am, because I am alone exists. But I am is not the nimitta karana. It's not the active cause. My I am doesn't do anything. I am just is. So the nimitta karana, the active cause for all this is ego. And if we investigate ego, we find there's no such thing. So there's cause and effect ultimately are wholly unreal because the first cause itself is unreal. That is why the ultimate truth is Ajata. But coming to your question, who has written this? Who's the author of this script? Ultimately, it is ego. That is who we are now dreaming. Who is the dreamer of this dream? The same one who is seeing the dream. In other words, ego. That doesn't mean that Ted is not the author of the dream. The I that is aware of itself as I am Ted, that is the author of the dream. That is ego. But as soon as ego begins dreaming, it dreams itself as a person in its dream. So now ego is experiencing itself as I am Ted. Ted is not the author of the dream. Ted is just one small person in this on this planet. There's 6 billion other people just like Ted, and this planet is a tiny speck in this vast universe. So how can Ted be the author of all this? Obviously, Ted isn't the author of all this. What is the author of all this is ego, that which is aware of itself as I am Ted. If that which is now aware of itself as I am Ted turns its attention within to see who am I, it will merge back into the pure I am. And then it will be clear that there never was any ego, never was any Ted, never was any universe. I am alone exists as it is eternally without ever undergoing any change whatsoever. So, but another thing, though ego is the cause of all this, because we now experience ourselves as a person, we are not experiencing ourselves as the one in control of all this. So what is in control of all this? It is said that everything that we experience in this life is the fruit of actions that we've done in past lives. But what is the power that selects what is the appropriate fruit for each action, and when, where, and how that fruit should be experienced? Here we have to bring in another entity, an entity called God. But God we are talking about now is the God who seems to be other than ourselves. So as something other than ourselves, God is no more real than ego or world, because it's only in the view of ego that God seems to be other than ourselves. But so long as we experience ourselves as this finite little creature, we have no power over this world. So there has to be some higher power that has that is regulating everything that is happening, but is allotting the fruit of our actions. That higher power is said to be God. But if we go into the matter deeper, God seems to exist only when we're looking outwards. That God as a separate entity seems to exist as only when we're looking outwards. If we look deep within, we will find that the reality of God is our own reality. We and God are not different. As Bhagavan says in verse 24 of Upadesha, Irukam ikayal isa jivagal oruporlayaba. That is, by their existing nature, God and soul are one substance. So what God actually is and what we actually are is one and the same. But when we rise as ego, God seems to be something other than ourselves. But this ego that is now aware of itself as I am Ted cannot be God. Because Ted is finite. He's born one day, going to die one day. He's limited in time. He's limited in space. How can that limited Ted be God? Obviously not. So long as we look outwards, we are aware of ourselves as this small person. So God seems to be something other than ourselves. But the reality of that God who seems to be something other than ourselves is the same as the reality of ourselves. So if we want a deeper explanation, or if we want to understand more deeply what is meant by saying that it is God who ordains the fruit of actions, what is God? God is our own real nature. That is, the reality of God is our own real nature. Our own real nature is infinite happiness. Infinite love. That is, as we actually are, we have infinite love for ourselves as we actually are, because nothing other than ourselves exists. So we have infinite love for ourselves. And as Bhagavan said, this reflects in ego, because for everyone, the greatest love is only for oneself, as he says in the first paragraph of Nana. We cannot help loving ourselves more than all other things. Whatever else we may love, we love it because it contributes to our happiness. If someone you love begins to give you endless trouble, your love for them will inevitably wane. We cannot love that which is giving us misery. So but because our greatest concern is about ourselves. Why? Because self-love is our very nature. So because as we actually are, we have infinite love for ourselves. And what is us? We are not only infinite love, we are also infinite happiness. The reason we love ourselves is because we are infinite happiness. And we are infinite happiness because happiness, and when we think about it very deeply, happiness and love ultimately are one and the same thing. It's only when we look outwards that they seem to be two separate things, and one seems to be the cause of the other. So our real nature is infinite happiness, and we have infinite love for ourselves. So what do we want? We want only to be happy. We want nothing other than to be happy. So that infinite love that we have for ourselves as we actually are, when we rise as ego, that infinite love is what manifests as grace. So it is the grace of God, or the grace of our own real nature, that is the God who is ordaining the fruits of actions. It is that infinite love, that grace, that appears to us in the form of Guru to tell us to turn within. So ultimately, that's why Bhagavan often used to say, grace is the beginning, the middle, and the end. That is, there is nothing other than grace, because grace is that infinite love that we have for ourselves as we actually are. And that infinite love is ourself. It's not something other than ourself. So ultimately, it's our own love to be happy that is ordaining the fruits of our actions. You may think, oh no, I want to be happy, but the fruits of my actions are giving me so much misery. Because grace is also, that is that infinite love that we have for ourselves, is also pure awareness. So it's infinite wisdom. And it's infinite wisdom. It knows that just by giving us petty pleasures in this world will never satisfy us. However much our desires are satisfied, there will be more desires. We want something more. So there's no, because, why? Because we are infinite happiness. So we cannot be satisfied with anything less than infinite happiness. But as this finite ego, we cannot experience infinite happiness. How can this ego that is now aware of itself as I am Ted, how can it experience infinite happiness? It's now experiencing itself as something finite, so it can only experience finite things. So we can never experience infinite happiness so long as we rise as ego. So grace has the wisdom to understand that merely satisfying our desires is not the way to make us happy. So whatever the fruits of our past actions are allotted by grace for our own benefit, for our own good. Our own benefit, our own good means our ultimate good. That is, they are what are most conducive to us, to our progress in the spiritual path, to our gaining love to turn within, and vairagya, freedom from liking to go outwards. So long as we are aware of ourselves as I am Ted, or I am Michael, or I am whoever, God seems to be something other than ourselves. Grace seems to be something other than ourselves. But as Bhagavan said, grace is not something up in heaven that's going to come and shower down on us. Grace is what is always shining in our heart as I. Because grace is ourselves. Our very nature is grace.
Wonderful. Very, very satisfying. And it's no longer going to be an issue for me either to think I'm guilty of blasphemy for not believing in God outside of the I am. In Maya, there is no God. I only say this to underscore it another 1,000 times, yes, so that I no longer feel even a tinge of guilt about that.
Bhagavan will disagree with you. So long as there is ego, there is God as another.
Yes, within the dream. As long as it's ego, there is God. But we're learning to be totally outside of the dream, containing ourselves to the I am, in which the I am can be said to be God and Michael, both one and the same.
I am alone is the true nature of God. But so long as we limit I am as I am this body, God seems to be something other than ourselves. Yeah. This is what in Vedanta is the distinction that is made between Niguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman. That is, Niguna Brahman is the real nature of Brahman. What Brahman actually is Niguna. It's devoid of all gunas, all qualities, it is nirvisesha. It has no distinguishing characteristics. That's the pure I am. That is Niguna Brahman. But so long as we limit ourselves with this body, God seems to be something other than ourselves. That God who seems to be something other than ourselves, because he's something other than ourselves, he has some distinguishing qualities. So he's Saguna Brahman. But Saguna Brahman is actually nothing other than Niguna Brahman when viewed from the perspective of ego. So instead of viewing God from the perspective of ego, let's look within and see what we actually are. Then we will see God from the perspective of God, because we ourselves are God. So long as we look outward, we seem to be ego. So we cannot know God as he actually is. To know God as he actually is, we need to look within. Deep within.
Thank you. I've been carrying this question around for 22 years, ever since I heard for the first time our own teacher say, in so many words, remember this, repeat after me. I am God, I am God, I am no different from God. And he wasn't talking about the TED I am, he was talking about the I am.
Yeah.
And it's crystal clear now. You're the best explanation I've heard. Thank you.
Well, this isn't my explanation. This is Bhagavan's explanation.
Sure.
Bhagavan has given us, if we understand, that is Bhagavan, some of the things I've said, Bhagavan may have not said explicitly, but he said implicitly in so many ways. So if we go deep into Bhagavan's teachings and understand not only the surface meaning of the words, but the implication, then we find Bhagavan had actually given us the most satisfactory answer to all questions. And the ultimate answer to all questions is, find out who am I.
Michael?
That is the purpose of all other answers, is to direct us, to make us understand the need for us to look deep within and find out who am I.
Hello, Michael.
Yes.
I ask a question?
Yes, by all means.
Okay. Could you just talk a little bit about Ajata? My friend's been telling me about Ajata, and I don't know if I'm really clear on what it is.
Anything I say about Ajata is doing injustice to Ajata. That is why Bhagavan said the ultimate teaching is only silence. Because words can never indicate what lies beyond. That is what lies beyond the mind. Doesn't mean outside the mind. It lies right deep in the heart, in the very center. Thought cannot penetrate into the center, words cannot penetrate into the center, because when we try to go into the center, we lose ourselves in that, and we find the center alone exists. Center means the heart. So that's why Bhagavan said, there is nothing other than the heart. But in order to see that there's nothing other than the heart, we have to look deep within. Ajata is, it has been talked about in Advaita for well over 1,000 years, but that is one sage who is whose name is very much associated with Ajata is Gaudapada. Gaudapada is the author of the Mandukya Karika. That is a verse commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad, and that is was such a valuable, it is such a valuable text. But when Adi Shankara wrote his commentaries on the Upanishads, all the other Upanishads, he just wrote his commentary on the Upanishad. But on the Mandukya Upanishad, he wrote his commentary not only on the Mandukya Upanishad, but on the Mandukya Karika. The Mandukya Upanishad is embedded within the Mandukya Karika. So it is such an important text. And in that text, everyone knows Gaudapada taught Ajata. He emphasized Ajata so much. But what most people overlook is that Gaudapada also taught what Bhagavan taught, which is Drishti Shrishti Vada. Drishti Shrishti Vada means that nothing exists independent of our perception of it. That is, drishti literally means sight or seeing, but in effect it means perception. Shrishti means creation. So what comes first? Is there first creation and then we see it, or is our very seeing the cause of creation? According to Shrishti Drishtivada, which includes all scientific theories of creation, most religious theories of creation, most philosophical theories of creation, all are Shrishti Drishtivada. They all assume the world exists independent of our perception of it. But Bhagavan and Gaudapada taught Drishti Shrishtivada. That is, this is all a dream. In a dream, whatever you see in a dream has no existence independent of your perception of it. So if we understand Drishti Shrishtivada as taught by Bhagavan, then it will become clear the meaning of Ajata. That is, Ajata means nothing has come into existence. But to us, that is quite contrary to our experience. At every moment, we are seeing things coming into existence and ceasing to exist. Every change that takes place, when something changes, what it was before the change is something different to what it was after the change. So what it was before the change has ceased to exist, and what it is after the change has newly come into existence. So when we see the whole world is constant change, everything in this world is changing. So that means everything is coming to existence and ceasing to exist. So but our whole experience is an experience of things appearing and disappearing. Constantly in our experience, things are appearing one moment, disappearing the next moment. Our thoughts are appearing and disappearing. The objects in the world are appearing and disappearing. Cars go zooming by, or we may go zooming by, and the buildings which were by our side 1 minute, now they're far behind us. So everything is moving. So our experience is 100% against Ajata. You can even say our experience disproves Ajata. Ajata can't be true because our experience is there is constant change. Constantly things are coming into existence and out of existence.
Michael, isn't awareness steady, and awareness is aware of seeing all the changes and never changes itself?
Well, no. I'll come to. Can you ask me that after a little while? Because that also is something that requires clarification. So, if all that we are now experiencing is real, then Ajata is false. It's unreal. But is all that we are experiencing now real? That is the question. That if we want to get from our present experience to understand how Ajata logically fits in with our present experience, we have to think much more deeply. So now we are constantly seeing things appearing and disappearing. But are any of them real, or do they just seem to exist? Whatever is not aware of its own existence cannot be real, in the sense that it does not actually exist, because it seems to exist only in the view of something that is aware of it. So this whole universe, with all its myriad changes, its ceaseless changes, exists in whose view? It exists only in the view of ourself as ego. So if ego is real, then this all may be real. But is ego real? If we investigate ego, as Bhagavan says, if you look for it, it takes flight. There's no such thing as ego. We seem to be ego only so long as we're looking outside. If we look back to see who am I, we will see we are just pure awareness. Pure awareness is that which always remains as it is. It's immutable. It never undergoes any change. So if we are pure awareness, then we have never risen as ego. We have never known anything other than ourselves. So if that is why Bhagavan said the ultimate truth is Ajata. But Ajata is not a teaching. Because in Ajata, there's there's no problem at all. There's also no one to teach anything, and there's no one to be taught anything. Because in Ajata, there's just pure being. So Ajata cannot be a teaching. We are told Ajata is the ultimate truth. That may be a teaching, but it is not. It has. That is. What is the purpose of any teaching? What is the benefit of any teaching? A teaching must have some practical application. If we are just taught, oh, nothing exists, there's no world, no ego, nothing. How does that help us? In our view, yes, the world does still exist. I am still this ego. So the merely being told, but none of this is real, but none of it exists at all. Ajata doesn't only say, according to Drishti Shrishti Vada, all this is an illusory appearance. According to Ajata, there is no illusory appearance at all. There is only what is. This is the perspective of our real nature, of ourself as we actually are. Pure awareness. In the view of pure awareness, there is nothing else. It's only in the view of ego that all these seem to exist. So the only way to get from... So, oh yes, I was saying about Bhagavan, though Bhagavan said Ajata is the ultimate truth, he said Ajata is not a teaching. But teaching is Drishti Shrishti Vada, because the teaching must provide a means to get to the truth. Ajata is just a statement of the truth, or Ajata as we know it. We only know Ajata as words. There is no world, there's no creation, nothing has ever come into existence, nothing has ever ceased to exist. Those are for us, they're just words, just ideas. So we cannot, nowadays it's very fashionable. A lot of the neo-Advaitins love to talk about Ajata, but they haven't got a clue what Ajata is. They'll say, oh, no, I know what Ajata is. There's no world, there's nothing. So long as there's an I to be saying there's no world, there's nothing, we haven't experienced Ajata. So that is, Ajata is the ultimate truth, the ultimate experience. How to experience Ajata? We first have to come down one level to a level of Drishti Shrishti Vada. So Bhagavan tells us, yes, all this world seems to exist, but in whose view does it seem to exist? Only in the view of ego. So none of this, it can be any more real than ego. Does ego actually exist? Yes, so long as we're looking at the world, ego seems to exist. But if instead of looking at the world, if we look at ego, if we look at ourselves to see who am I, ego disappears and pure awareness alone remains. In the state of pure awareness is Ajata. Because in the view of pure awareness, nothing has ever come into existence. So the practical teaching is Drishti Shrishti Vada. If we follow the practical implication of Drishti Shrishti Vada, okay, if all this exists only in my view, then none of it is real. So trying to know about the world, trying to know about anything other than myself is useless. Because I'm only knowing about what isn't real. So if I want to know what is real, I need to find out who am I. Because though ego is real, though ego is unreal, as ego, it has an element of reality. The snake is unreal as a snake, but it's real as the rope. Likewise, ego is unreal as ego, it is real as I am. So if we want to know what is real, we cannot find what is real outside, because what is outside all depends only on ego for its seeming existence. So we can find what is real only by... Ego needs to turn its attention back within, to look back at itself in order to find what is real. Ego is the false awareness, I am Ronald. In that false awareness, why that awareness I am Ronald is false? Because Ronald is false. Ronald is wholly unreal. Ronald doesn't actually exist at all. But so long as you're aware of yourself as I am Ronald, that mixed awareness, I am Ronald, is ego. The reality in ego is not Ronald, it is only I am. So when we investigate ourselves, sometimes it's described as we're investigating ego. But what is it in ego but we're investigating? Are we investigating Ronald? Ronald is the name of a person consisting of body, life, mind, intellect, will. Are you to investigate any of these things? No. You're only to investigate the essence of ego. That is I am. And I am alone is real. When we when we turn our attention back to look at ourselves, we are turning our back on Ronald or Michael or whoever we take ourselves to be. We're turning our back on everything. We're looking only at I am. So everything else, when you're wholly focused on one thing, other things you don't notice. If you're in a busy train and you're reading a book, say, if a book is a really interesting book, you don't know what's happening. You don't notice what's happening in a busy train. Passengers may be coming and going and everything. You're least interested because you're so interested in the book. Likewise, if we focus our attention wholly on ourselves, our attention will thereby be withdrawn from everything else. When we are not aware of anything other than ourselves, that is the state of pure awareness. So when we attend to ourselves so keenly, but we cease to be aware of anything other than ourselves, then we experience ourselves as pure awareness. As soon as we experience ourselves as pure awareness, which is what we actually are, we can never again mistake ourselves to be Ronald or Michael or Marty or anyone else. So when we see ourselves as we actually are, we will find we alone exist. That is the state of Ajata. So Ajata is not a philosophy, is not something to talk about. It's not a mere philosophy. It's not a mere idea. We can know Ajata only by looking deep within ourselves and knowing ourselves as we actually are. So the Neo-Advaitins who love to talk about Ajata, they will tell you there's nothing to do because there's no world, there's nothing, it's all Ajata, so there's no need to do anything. True, there's no need to do anything if you're actually experiencing Ajata. But we are now experiencing, I think you're aware of yourself as I am Ronald. I'm certainly aware of myself as I am Michael. So because I'm aware of myself as I'm Michael, I'm aware of this vast world of which Michael is just a small part. So I have a problem. So merely telling myself, oh, it all doesn't exist, it's all Ajata, there's no world, nothing has ever come into existence, it's futile. It's the height of folly to tell yourself something, but it's not going to be of any use to you at all. Merely knowing that Ajata is the truth is useless unless we know how to experience that truth. We can experience that truth only by withdrawing our attention from all other things and by focusing it entirely on ourselves.
Yeah.
So self-attentiveness, self-investigation, this alone is the key to Ajata. This alone is the key to happiness. This alone is the key to moksha. This alone is the key to everything. Well, it's the key to the only thing that actually exists, which is I am.
Yeah. Very good.
Which is what is called Ajata, moksha, jnana, vidya, whatever, happiness, love, whatever you want, God, whatever label you want to call it, it is all only I am. That is all we need to know. Who am I?
So Ajata is not like a void. It's I am only I.
It is, Bhagavan said, it is not a void, it is fullness. That is, when we say void, void means emptiness. Something must exist in order to be empty. So what exists is only I am. I am is void in the sense of, is devoid of all other things, but it's full of itself. That is, it is fullness itself. It's purnatva. Because nothing other than that exists. So what is empty is all these appearances. What is full is only I am.
And what you say with the Neo-Advaitins, because I had that in the past, I was following one teacher like that.
Yeah.
And it's even worse, actually, because in a way you stop seeking. You think, oh, I can do whatever I want. And
Yeah. It's very nice, very nice. We can do whatever we want, and we can be as miserable as we want. So, yeah, we don't come to this spiritual path to fool ourselves. We come to this spiritual path to know what is the truth. And you cannot know what is the truth by mere words or mere ideas. The truth is beyond all words, beyond all ideas. The truth lies deep in our own heart.
And I have another question, because it's very a worldly question, because I received a lot of money from my family, and I feel that it's wrong to have money, but I cannot get rid of it. and when I think of Bhagavan and his devotees, I feel like, I don't know, like they gave up so much, and I live with all this abundance.
Yeah, well, don't worry about that, because whatever we experience is what is given to us. It's our prarabdha. In one lifetime, we may be totally destitute throughout our life. In another lifetime, we may seem to have all that we need in terms of material things. Material things don't bind us. Neither does the absence of material things bind us, nor does the presence of material things binds us. What binds us is our attachment to these things, our identification. Oh, I'm destitute, I have no money, I have so many difficulties. That's one type of attachment. Oh, I've got so much money, I don't have to worry about anything, I can live a very peaceful life. That's another type of attachment. If we want to be free of attachment, we need to be free of ego, because the very nature of ego is to attach itself to things. As Bhagavan says in verse 25 of Ulivnaptu, grasping form, it comes into existence. Grasping form, it stands. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly. So thinking, I am rich or I am poor, I have this or I don't have that, it's all this. Adding anything to I am is false. What is true is only I am in its pure, pristine form, devoid of all adjuncts. So if you've been given sufficient money, that has been given to you for a purpose. Make use of that by turning your attention within. If you've got money, then you don't have, most people have, they seem to have to, there's a need for most people, according to the prarabdha of most people, there's a need to work, to earn money, to do this and that. If you have been free from that need, then all the more responsibility you have to turn within. You've been given a very precious opportunity. Make use of that opportunity. And also, you say you can't give away your money, but if that is, it's always good to give. If we have, it's good to give to others. If it's our destiny to always have money, even if we give away millions, somehow that money will come back to us because it's our destiny to have it. So giving is always good. So, but that's not the purpose of our life. As Bhagavan says at the end of the 19th paragraph, whatever is given to others is given only to oneself. If this truth were known, who would not give to others? So if you've got money, but that is, you shouldn't be going out seeking people who need help, but you'll always come across people in life who need help of one sort or another. Give them whatever they need. If you've got abundant money, then it's a good opportunity to help others. But that shouldn't become the purpose of our life. Otherwise, we are allowing ourselves to be distracted by things other than ourselves. The real purpose of our life is only to go within. How can we help all the suffering people in this world? Even if we're as rich as Jeff Bezos, with all our hundreds of billions, we cannot solve all the problems of the world. Okay, he could give away a lot of money, he could help a lot of people, but it's not really a permanent solution because the world will always be problems. We can't put an end to the pandemic with however many billions we have. We can't put an end to the pandemic. However many billions we have, we can't put an end to wars. We can't put an end to natural disasters. We can't put an end to global warming and things. So money has only limited benefit. It has only limited, we're able to do good only to a limited extent with money. If we want to do the greatest good of all for all the jivas in this entire universe, the best thing is to do is to turn within and thereby wake up from this dream. Because all the jivas in this universe exist only in the view of the dreamer. Who is this dreamer? Who am I? That is what we need to investigate. Is that an adequate answer to your question?
Yes, it's great. It's great. And there are no, like, if you don't hurt people, are there activities that are better than others, or it's just all in the mind?
I think that is, in my view, my understanding is that the only really meaningful standard of morality, of right and wrong, is ahimsa. That is, doing good to others is very difficult because there's so many people who have problems. Even if you want to help them, you can't help them. People who have, there's so many problems that can't be solved by others. People who have mental health issues and things. Ultimately, all these things each one of us is responsible for our own happiness or misery. If we are miserable, who is to blame? We are to blame. So we can't make people happy. Even to make ourselves happy, in order to make ourselves happy, we need to surrender. That's the only way. So, but the greatest good we can do is by turning within and knowing what we actually are. That is that is what we should be trying to do. But so long as we're looking outwards, we should try to avoid doing harm to anyone. Even if we cannot do any good to anyone, we should at least try to avoid doing harm to anyone. So that for a spiritual aspirant, ahimsa is the yardstick by which you measure morality. Is an action right action or wrong action? Is it doing harm to anyone? Even if it's doing harm to no one else but doing harm to yourself, it's an immoral action. Doing harm to yourself means detrimental to your spiritual progress. So thinking about anything other than yourself is doing harm to yourself. So that is an immoral action. The only moral action, ultimately, is to attend to yourself. And that is not an action. That is just being, not doing. So ultimately, all actions are bad actions. What is good is only being. But of course, so long as we're engaged in activity, some actions are relatively good, some are relatively bad. It's all just relative. Good and bad are just relative. But the ultimate good is only knowing and being what we actually are. Does that answer that question?
Yes. As long as you see good or bad, maybe better to do good than bad.
Definitely.
But it's still all relative, and that's not what we're aiming for.
Exactly. The aim of our life is not to be good. The aim of our life is just to be. Bhagavan, in talk somewhere, it's recorded, where I can't remember what the question was. Bhagavan said, your duty is not to be this or that. Your duty is just to be.
Far more profound.
Yes.
Michael, I was also thinking about Ajata some time ago. And as I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, oh, it's a void, it's nothingness. And Then I went into self-inquiry, and I was just sitting outside, not even meditating, nothing. And then I went into a absolute void space. And that void was so complete and content.
Yes. It is
I don't know
Purnatva.
how long I was there, but the thought came in my head, oh, this is really a good place to be
Yes.
in. And of course, I snapped out of it.
Yes, yes.
So my question is, would this be a mental concept? Because Ajata has to be
Yeah.
permanent.
Yeah.
And this is,
It's still
again, a
mental.
coming and going issue.
So long as you are there to say that I experience that, it is still not the complete fullness. It may be a relative fullness compared to the emptiness of our normal outward-looking day-to-day life. But the complete fullness is that state in which we disappear and remain just as the fullness. That is, we ourselves are the fullness. So long as we experience fullness as something that now I experience fullness, previously I wasn't experiencing fullness, that is not fullness. When ego is annihilated, we will know there never was any ego. So that is why Bhagavan says, Nittama Mukti Nilay, the state of liberation which is eternal. When we know ourselves as we actually are, we will know that we were ever that. We were never ego. So long as there's any coming and going, it is still, it's all within the realm of ego. Yes, the more we look within, the more we experience that fullness. But we can experience the fullness in its fullness only by losing ourselves in it. When we cease to exist, that Bhagavan said that your greatest glory lies where you cease to exist. So when we cease to exist, then we will know true fullness. Then we will know Ajata. Then we will know Brahman. Then we will know ourselves. We will know everything. We'll know God. We'll know everything. How do we know it? By just being it. So silence, Purnatva, Satchidananda, Brahman, all these things can never be, pure awareness, can never be known as objects. In order to know what is real, we need to lose ourselves in what is real. Ego can never know what is real. So people talk about, is this person self-realized? Is that person self-realized? They are ignorant of what self-realization is. No person is self-realized, because so long as you're aware of yourself as I am a person, you're not self-realized. When you're self-realized, there's no I to say I am this person.
So is there a way that I can go into that state and never come out? I mean, is there something I can do to be in that state?
You are already in that state. Know what you actually are, and you will find you are eternally in that state. And to know what you actually are, you need to look deep within. So whatever question we may ask, ultimately, it all has to come back to looking deep within to see who am I. If you see who am I, everything is, all problems are solved. You will, even to say all problems are solved is not quite correct, because when you see who am I, you will see there never were any problems, and there never was any person to whom any problems could have occurred. There never was any ego to whom any problems could have occurred. So until we lose ourselves completely, we have to continue trying more and more and more to look deep within ourselves.
Like you said, there is nothing to report, no one to report to.
No. That's why Bhagavan said, Ajata cannot be a teaching, because for a teaching, you need a teacher, You need a teaching and you need someone to teach. In Ajata, there's neither a teacher nor anyone to teach, so there's no need for any teaching.
And by extension, there's nobody to help. There is no suffering. Why aren't there more monasteries, ashrams, retreat centers showing up, at least for the Ramana people, if not for others on this same path, to devote all their time to awakening to their one truth, thereby solving all the world's problems?
Because in order to awaken, you don't need monasteries, you don't need ashrams, you don't need anything. You need to look within. So long as you're looking outside thinking, oh, if I'm in a monastery, I can devote all my time to this self-investigation. You're thinking of something other than yourself. You're wasting your time. There's only one moment when you can attend to yourself. That is here and now. So at this very moment, we should be attending to ourselves. Did Bhagavan have any monastery or ashram or anything? Okay, later an ashram grew up around him, but that had nothing to do with him. No monastery or ashram or any institution is necessary to know who am I. To know who am I, we need to look within. So all these external, that's why Bhagavan never recommended external renunciation, nor was he opposed to it. Bhagavan said, just like marriage comes according to prarabdha, so sannyasa comes according to prarabdha. Someone who's prarabdha to be a sannyasi is no better than a householder. So long as they think I am a sannyasi, they're no better than a householder who think, but Bhagavan said, the householder who doesn't think I am a householder is a better sannyasi than a sannyasi who thinks I am a sannyasi. So the true sannyasa is to give up all identification. That's why Bhagavan says, what is giving up everything? He says in verse 26 of Uludunaptu, now Bhagavan's path is a path of complete renunciation. But what's a renunciation does Bhagavan ask us to do? He says, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ego itself is everything. Therefore, investigating what it is giving up everything. Why is it giving up everything? Because if we investigate ego, ego itself will disappear and everything else will disappear along with it. That is the renunciation Bhagavan asks us to take to. For that renunciation, you don't need to shave your head. You don't need to change the color of your cloth. You don't need to change your name. You don't need to live in a monastery. You don't need to go begging your food. If it's your destiny, these things may be there. But all you need is to turn within. That is true renunciation.
I think one of the things that Ramana Maharshi says is that one gentleman comes and says, I feel I need to renounce my family, go into the forest and meditate. And Ramana Maharshi says, look, I gave up my family and look at the number of people.
I have a big family.
That was a good one, I thought.
Yeah, we cannot escape our prarabdha. If it's our prarabdha to have a large family, even if we run away to a cave in the Himalayas, some family of disciples or admirers will come and surround us. So the real renunciation is only looking within. And that is possible here and now. It's possible in the midst of a battlefield. It's possible in the midst of big Manhattan or any big city in the world. All we need to do is to look within. Bhagavan said, prarabdha affects only the outward going mind. It can never stop the mind turning within. So whether you're a sannyasi or a householder or whatever your prarabdha may be, you need to have love to turn within. If you have love to turn within, it doesn't matter whether you've got whether you have to work 16 hours a day to support a family of 10 children and you're not elderly parents and brothers and sisters. You may have so much responsibility. None of it matters if you have love to turn within. If you don't have love to turn within, even if you go and sit in a cave, or even if you become a monk and join a monastery, or become a sannyasi and join a mutt, it's all of no use if you don't have love to turn within. So it all comes down to that love to turn within. That is what is crucial. How do we cultivate the love to turn within? The only way is to try to turn within. The more we turn within, the more our liking to turn within will increase, and our inclination to go outwards will decrease. So what Bhagavan has taught us is so simple. This is such a direct path because it's going directly back to ourselves. What is our goal? To know who am I? What is the direct way to know who am I? To look within ourselves. So this is a problem that this is the solution for all problems. It's so simple, but we must have liking for this. That is where we all fall short. Why don't we know ourselves as we actually are? Why are we not being ourselves as we actually are? Because we don't yet have sufficient love. So the love is all important. And that love can be cultivated only by trying more and more and more. That's why Bhagavan said this self-investigation or self-surrender is itself a mighty prayer. Because the more we look within, the more what better way to pray for the annihilation of the ego than to look within to see what is this ego? So that's why Bhagavan said this mere investigation, who am I, is itself karma, yoga, bhakti, and jnana. Because karma means nishkarmiya karma. For whom are karmiya karma or nishkarmiya karma? Only for I. Bhakti means love for God. Who is lacking in love for God? I. Yoga means union. Who needs union? The one who is separated. Who is separated? I am. So who is that I? Jnana means we are now ignorant. We need to know something. What do we need to know? We need to know who am I. So investigating who am I is the pinnacle, the culmination of all other spiritual paths. That's what Bhagavan explains beautifully in Upadesha Undiyar, how all other paths ultimately have to come to this path. No other path can reach its fulfillment without bringing one to this path. This path is the only way to annihilate ego. Why? Because all other paths entail attending to something other than ourselves. Or if they don't entail attending to something other than ourselves, they entail withdrawing our attention from everything else. But we cannot annihilate ego either by attending to something other than ourselves, because that's just a thought, nor can we annihilate ego just by withdrawing our attention from everything else, because that's manolaya. We can annihilate ego only by seeing who am I. When we look within to see who is this mischievous ego, the fellow runs away, no longer available to be found. So even this term manonasa, destruction of the mind, it is only from the perspective of ego that we call it manonasa. But actually, if you try to kill the mind, if you look for the mind in order to kill it, you will find no mind. That itself is killing the mind. How to kill the illusory snake? Look at it carefully, you'll see it never existed. How to kill the mind? How to kill ego? Look at it very carefully and you'll see it never existed as such. All that exists is only I am.
Michael.
Yes.
In Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, sometimes when Bhagavan scolds Arunachala, why does he do that? Because I feel like that Bhagavan or Arunachala is so good to us, and it's us we're not good.
Lovers, you cannot question lovers. If you see two lovers having a fight, you don't interfere. It's between them. It is the expression of his love for Arunachala. but he rebukes Arunachala for his own shortcomings. Why does it? That is, for example, in one verse, Bhagavan says, "O Sutrulambida Dunekan Dadangida Unarahe Kata Arunachala." Arunachala, show your beauty so that the mind which is wandering around the world may see you and thereby subside. So he's putting the blame. Now, whose mind is wandering? My mind is wandering, but I'm now putting the blame on Arunachala. Because you haven't shown your beauty, so my mind is wandering. So it's your fault. So you have to show your beauty. But what lies behind all this is that love to subside, that love to see Arunachala's beauty. That is why he rebukes Arunachala, but it's all an expression of love.
We're so used to see an attitude to God of like being very low and very, I don't know, like always it's my fault, God is so good. And to see this, it's very, I don't know.
Because Bhagavan is so intimate with Arunachala, he takes all sorts of liberties. In one verse, Ramanane Druritain, Roshangaladane, Ramitidachaya Arunachala. He said, I called you Ramana. Ramana means the beloved. I called you Ramana. That is, I took so much liberty with you. Do not take offense, or do not reject me because I took so much familiarity. Come and make me happy. So it's because of his great love for Arunachala, but he's able to take so much liberty. That is, he's entitled to take that liberty because of his love for Arunachala. And after all, think of the bhava of Arunachala Aksharamalai. Who is Bhagavan? Bhagavan is a young 16-year-old girl who has been dragged out of her home by Arunachala. So Arunachala, having taken responsibility, if a man takes a young girl out of her home and promises to marry her, he's taking a huge responsibility for himself. So if he's failing in that, the girl has every right to rebuke him. So Bhagavan is that 16-year-old girl. He's rebuking Arunachala. You've dragged me out of my home and you brought me here. If you don't now consummate this marriage, will this become you? So we need to understand that very intimate, loving relationship with which Bhagavan has for Arunachala.
And that's how we should aspire to be. Or
yes, that is, we should have so much love. But what is Arunachala? Though in the poetry, Arunachala seems to be a form outside, Bhagavan is also making it so clear. Who shines in the heart. He's often referring to Arunachala, who shines in the heart. He says, Arunachala is dancing in the heart as I. So though on the surface, it seems like a prayer between a devotee and God, it's actually a prayer between ego and its own reality, its own self, its own true nature.
And when you say you dragged me out of my home, it's like when we had this life of ego and we were happy with it.
Yes. Who are you? The Arunachala's a Pichandi. He's a beggar. So if a beggar comes and drags a girl out of her home, at home she was very comfortable with family and everything. Now this beggar has come and dragged her out of her home. Then the beggar's taking huge responsibility. What sort of life is he offering the girl? He's offering a life of a vagabond. So at least he should consummate the marriage. So we need to understand the bhava, intimate love that Bhagavan has for Arunachala. And of course, all these things, it's all metaphorical. That is this Nayaki bhava. That's this what is in Western mysticism is called bridal mysticism. That is, Nayaki means the girl, and Nayakan is the Lord. So it's that love between the jiva is the girl, God is the Lord. There's just to illustrate this, there's a nice story about Mirabai. Mirabai heard about one great saint. He was supposed to be a great saint. So she wanted to, she heard he's a great Krishna Bhakta. So she's a Krishna Bhakta. Of course, she wants to go and meet other Krishna Bhaktas. So she went to meet him. And when she went to meet him, she was not allowed to enter. And when she asked why, a message came back that he doesn't see ladies. That he's such a strict sannyasi, he won't even see a lady. And then she said, "Oh, I thought we were all ladies, and the only man is God. The only Purusha is God." And when that message was conveyed to him, then he came out and fell at her feet because he understood what great devotion she has. That is the truth. We are the gopis. Bhagavan, Arunachala, or Bhagavan is the Krishna. So there is only one Purusha, one man. So all these are all metaphors, but they're deeply meaningful metaphors because that is it. We need to go deep into the heart of it to really understand what is that love that Bhagavan is expressing. Until we experience that love ourselves, that intensity of love that Bhagavan had, that intimacy of love that Bhagavan has, we cannot adequately understand it. But we can begin to understand it. Bhagavan is showing us the way through Aksharamlaya. And Aksharamlaya is such a key text. It's not just, oh, that's the devotional side, that's not so important. So long as I do who am I, then that's all. That is Aksharamlaya is who am I in practice? Because what is this path of self-investigation is what? It's a battle going on in our own heart between our liking to go outwards, our Vishaya vasanas, and our liking to go back within our Sat vasana. So it's all of Bhagavan said, the whole spiritual path is nothing but a battle in our own heart between our outward going vasanas and the inward going vasana.
Yeah, I thought it was so helpful because once you know the theory, you still have to apply, and that's This is the actual practical application. What it means to apply this Atma-vichara in practice is revealed through Aksharamlaya. But we can't easily, that is, Aksharamlaya is an extremely deep text. The meaning of it, the import of it, the implication of it will reveal itself to us to the extent to which we go deep within. It is a very, very deep text.
Michael, you've been talking about love here more than almost any time I've ever heard you refer to that subject.
Love is what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. And it reminds me of a conversation I had just this week with a friend of mine from Chicago who spent the last 2 years sequestered in India because of COVID at Arunachala.
Right.
And so I thought, well, this is a great person to interview. And the interview really surprised me because I expected him to tell me about all that he's learned, all the new lessons, all the new slants on who am I and self-enquiry. And he said, none of that happened in a way that was important to me as much as looking out my window and seeing the full mountain of Arunachala, and that's what we did. Arunachala was behind him. And know that I am literally a stone's throw away from the first building of the ashram. And I go there every day for 2 years. And I listen to the speakers who come in, the speakers who live there, the people I meet. And more important than anything they have to say, because I sort of tune them out, is that I sit there with an open heart. And in the presence of these people, in the presence of the mountain, in the presence of the reclining sofa that Ramana was on for all those many years, he said that did more to me than any one message. And I think it's talking metaphorically, which you use that word a lot.
Yeah.
That's love, opening yourself up to the
exactly.
So in a way, this is like going to school, listening to the lessons the teacher. In this sense, you're the pointer. I don't think you like to be called teacher, but you are to me. But even more important than the message is just to take in the desire you have in your heart to share what you know to be the truth.
Yes, people often ask me what I learned from Sadhu Om. For me, the most important thing I learned from Sadhu Om, it wasn't learning. I was infected by Sadhu Om, by his all-consuming love for Bhagavan was infectious. And I may have got a very mild dose of that, but at least I got it in a mild dose. And that is enough for me. Because this is an infection. Once we've been infected by this is not just like long COVID. This is an eternal infection. Once we've been caught, once we've caught the bug of love for Bhagavan, there's no escaping it. We are finished.
This is what seeing you feels like to us. I think it's your love for Bhagavan that is the most inspiring.
It's not me. It's only I'm just passing on the infection that I caught from Sadhu Om. And it's not Sadhu Om. Sadhu Om was nobody. Sadhu Om was absolutely nobody. That was his greatness, that he completely effaced himself. Because he didn't rise as the ocean of love that is Bhagavan was able to shine through him. Because of his complete surrender, his complete non-rising as I. So what is the source of all love? It is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is love itself. And there's a beautiful verse in verse 101 in Ashrams. Ambu vilalipol amburu vunilene ambai karaitaral Arunachala. Like ice in water, lovingly melt me as love in you, the form of love. So in an ocean, everything is water. The iceberg is also water. It's nothing but water, but it's a water in a solidified form. So we are like that. We are just like that lump of ice. We are solidified with due to our cold heart, our lack of love. So we can only pray to the ocean to melt us in it, as it. So melt me as love in you, the form of love. It's so beautifully expressed.
Go ahead, speak up.
Michael,
Yes.
You said earlier that Ramana used Arunachala metaphorically, seeming as if it was a prayer between ego and I am. What you said, what is Arunachala? Who shines in love as I, in the heart as I.
Yes.
When you talk about Bhagavan, are you also you just said some similar.
Yes, I think I understand what you're saying. There's a verse in Arunachala Ashtakam, which will answer this.
I'm not sure I asked the question. I didn't finish, so I'm not sure.
Okay, but I felt I knew your question, but these are.
You may well know what I'm about to ask.
Okay.
When you talk about Bhagavan being the love, the ultimate blah, 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 the source, are you also meaning that metaphorically to be Atma?
Yes. and I also mean Bhagavan. That is, it's both are equally true. That is, Bhagavan was actually praying to the mountain. It is we shouldn't try and dismiss it all as metaphor, because it can be in the same verses, can be understood and are intended to be understood in different at different levels. That is, so long as we are looking outwards, Arunachala is a form, Bhagavan is a form. Bhagavan is a person who lived for 54 years in Tiruvannamalai. Arunachala is a hill, but has been for ever since Brahma and Vishnu once had a quarrel. Arunachala has been there to annihilate the egos of devotees. So Bhagavan is praying both to the form of Arunachala and to the reality of Arunachala, because they're not different. What we see as a hill when we look outwards is what we see as I am when we look inwards. There's this is made clear by Bhagavan in verse 3 of Arunachala Ashtakam. What he says is, Ninayan Uruvena Eniye Nanna Nilamise Malay Enum Nilayine Nidan. That is, when I approach thinking of you as a form, you yourself stand as a hill on earth. That is, when we look outwards, as Bhagavan says in verse 4 of Uludunaptu, if oneself is a form, the world and God will be likewise. That is, so long as we experience ourselves as the form of a body, God seems to be something other than ourselves. So God is also a form. So long as we're looking outwards, we even if we have an idea God is formless, that idea God is formless is itself an idea. Ideas are just forms. So what he says in this, when I approach you thinking of you as a form, you stand as a hill on earth. Then he says, the next sentence, he points out the fallacy of trying to meditate on God as formless. If one thinks of or meditates upon your form as formless, one is like someone who wanders about the world in order to see the sky. That is, what is the sky? It seems to be a blue canopy that is covering the earth, and it's touching the horizon. But what the sky actually is just space. Supposing we want to go and touch the sky, where can we? If we can't fly up in the air, how can we go and touch the sky? Well, the sky is touching the horizon, so let me go to the horizon. And once I get to the horizon, then I can touch the sky. But when we get to the horizon, there's another horizon. But the sky will always be evading us, so long as we are looking for it, so long as we are taking it to be something other than. But what is sky? Sky is nothing but space. The space is here and now. We don't have to look outside to see the sky. We are self-occupying the sky. That is the idea. So it's a beautiful analogy. That is, why does Bhagavan say that? If we try to think of God as formless, that is, many people say, even religions say, God has no form. So it's wrong to meditate or to worship God as a form, or to meditate on God as a form. You have to pray to God as formless. He has no form. You have to meditate on him as formless. But the very idea God is formless is just that, an idea. And ideas are just mental forms. So long as we experience ourselves as a form, we cannot experience anything other than forms. That's why Bhagavan says in verse 4 of Uludunaptu, if oneself is a form, the world and God will be likewise. If oneself is not a form, who can see their forms and how? So forms means not only physical forms, even ideas in our mind are forms. Anything that can be distinguished from any other thing is a form. So all phenomena are forms. So all thoughts are just forms. So the idea that God is formless is itself just a form. So we cannot meditate. If we are trying to meditate on God as formless, that is futile. So what is the way? If we can't meditate on God as formless, then he gives the solution in the next sentence. Unnuru unal ara unnida. When thinking, when without thinking, one thinks of your form. Munne uru sarukarai uru ena uru oyum. That is when thinking without thinking of your form, one's own form will cease to exist, like a sugar form placed in the ocean. A sugar form here means he's referring to a salt doll. This is a classic analogy in Vedanta. If you put a salt doll in the ocean, what happens to it? It just dissolves and becomes part of the ocean. The reason Bhagavan uses the word sugar here is in polite society, in the part of Tamil Nadu that he came from, it was considered impolite. If you want to have a little bit more salt on your food, it's considered impolite to ask for salt, to ask for upu, so you ask for sugar. If you're having a spicy meal and you ask for sugar, people understand you mean salt. So it is sugar here means salt, actually. So what he's saying here is, if one thinks without thinking of your form, one's form, that's the ego, will cease to exist, like a salt doll placed in the ocean. So what does he mean by thinking without thinking of your form? What does he mean by thinking without thinking? That is, attending to anything other than ourselves is thinking. But if we turn our attention within, that is thinking in the sense that we're attending. But it's not thinking, because we're not attending to anything other than ourselves. So thinking without thinking is a way of saying when we attend to ourselves. And he says, unuru, when one thinks without thinking of your form. What does he mean by your form? Here he's referring to I am. So when we look outwards, his form is the form of a hill. But when we think without thinking, his form is that which is shining in our heart as I. So we need to attend to I, so that all thoughts cease. Attention to I, we can metaphorically call it a thought, because paying attention to anything is a thought, but paying attention to anything other than ourselves is a thought. Paying attention to ourselves is actually the cessation of all thoughts. But metaphorically, we can call it a thought. So it's thinking without thinking. Bhagavan often used to like to say that, speaking without speaking, thinking without thinking, knowing without knowing. It's a way of saying it is, when we attend to ourselves, yes, sometimes Bhagavan describes that as swarupa dhyana, meditating on oneself, atma-chintana, thinking of oneself. In one place in Nana, he refers to it as the thought, who am I? But it's not a thought. Of course, it's not a thought. It's just what he means by the thought, who am I? Is just that attention to I. So what he implies when he says, when one thinks without thinking of your form, is when we attend to the real form of Arunachala, which is what is shining in our heart as I, we will dissolve in that. So we shouldn't think, I must meditate on God as formless, I must meditate on Arunachala as formless. Your idea that Arunachala is formless is just another idea, it's a form. In order to experience Arunachala as formless, we need to meditate on his true form, which is that which is shining in the heart as I. His true form means the formless form, because I obviously isn't a form, but metaphorically we call it a form. So his true form is that which is shining in our heart as I. So in this verse, is he addressing here? Is he addressing a hill, or is he addressing I? He recognizes that what shines in the heart as I is what it's, when we look outwards, is what is seen as a hill. It's one and the same thing. So what we are seeing when we see the form of Arunachala, the physical form of Arunachala, that is the what is shining through that form is only I am. Likewise, when we see the form of Bhagavan, Bhagavan is nothing but I am. When Bhagavan was asked who he is, he says, he said, Arunachala Ramana is that supreme self, that Paramatman, but always exists and shines blissfully as awareness in the cave of the heart lotus of all jivas, beginning with Hari. Hari means Mahavishnu, the highest of, from the highest of all the gods down to the most insignificant of jivas. In the heart of all of them, that which is shining as awareness, that means the awareness I am, that is Arunachala Ramana. So what Bhagavan actually is what is shining in our heart as I. But when we look outwards, he seems to be a person. Why did he appear in the form of a person? In order to tell us to look within. So I'll just finish off that verse. In the next sentence, he says, Ene yan aribura, when I know myself, Ennuru veru edu, what else is my form? What does he mean by what else is my form? My form is nothing other than your form, is the implication. So when I know myself as I actually am, what else am I other than you? And then he ends by saying, Irindane Aruna Vangiri Ena Irindoi. You who exist as the great Aruna hill alone are. So is this a verse? Is he addressing Arunachala? Or is he, is he addressing the hill? Or is he addressing I? He's addressing both. Depending on, if you look within, it shines as I. If you look outside, when I approach you as having a form, you stand as a hill on earth. So when we look outwards, the form of Arunachala is the hill. The form of Bhagavan is that loving old man with kind eyes and a walking stick. That is Bhagavan when we look outwards. When we look within, he is that which is ever shining in our heart as our nearest and dearest, as our own self, as I am.
Thanks, Michael.
Does that answer your question adequately?
I think I assumed that actually all along.
Yes.
But at the same time, when we talk about Ramana or Arunachala without saying what you just said, sometimes I've never actually heard you say all that before. That Arunachala and Ramana basically are the ego's version of.
Yeah, when we look outwards.
Ego's view of I am.
Yeah.
And when I'm in ego, I can choose to meditate on the mountain or the form if I want to, but I can also go directly to self-inquiry and be.
It is better to meditate on God in a concrete form like Arunachala or Bhagavan than to try and meditate on God as formless, because formless is just a wishy-washy idea we've got. So long as we experience ourselves as a form, we cannot know formlessness. It's just an idea. So it's better to worship him in actual form, worship him as Bhagavan, worship him as a hill. But the best way of worshiping him is looking deep within, thinking without thinking of his true form, which is I.
Right. I got that. Thank you. It's
it's very important to understand these things. Otherwise, it's very puzzling. What is Bhagavan, this jnani who talks only about I am? What's he doing worshipping this hill? It makes no sense at all. Superficially, when we first come. But when we look deeper into it, when we understand, when I say it's metaphorical, yes, it is metaphorical. But it's also literal. It's both metaphorical and literal. So we can't limit it as being either this or that. It is both.
You know, our own guru, whom we followed for decades, very closely and visited quite a bit in India, did the same thing. But because it was never clarified as you just did, it was confusing.
Yeah.
1 minute he was talking about worshiping and meditating. The next minute he was talking about just being.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what was.
We
didn't know what to.
Fortunately for us, Bhagavan has clarified all these things.
Well, it's interesting.
That is Arunachala Stuti Panchakam is itself. If we read it deeply, it itself is the clarification for this.
Right. I get it. Thank you.
So the seemingly Anya Baba, that taking God to be Abba, and the Ananya Baba, they are woven together seamlessly in Arunachala Stuti Panchakam. So there's so many verses, but we can interpret it both. Bhagavan is talking literally about the hill, and he's talking metaphorically about I. Both. If we try to interpret everything as metaphor, it won't stand up to scrutiny. If we try and interpret it all as literal, it won't stand up, because the two are blended together seamlessly. Because the I that is now looking outwards and seeing him as a form is the same I that needs to look within. So it's just different ways of looking at the same thing. And what is that thing? It is I am.
That explains another huge question. I'll make this brief. As I'm a fan of looking to recognize people who, whatever euphemism you want to say, I use the word awakened. As I find and learn of people and hear them talk or read what they've written or talk to them myself, they have a lot in common with one another in this one respect. At the moment of their own awakening to the truth of who they are, they begin laughing because they see the lamp on the wall as the I am. The tree outside the window is the I am. The car going down the street is the I am. Everything becomes that. And although you didn't say it exactly that way, that's the inference I take from it is that you'll see that metaphorically, there's only the seamless, formless breath of life, but in the dream, all of it's I am.
Yes, but we need to understand this a little bit more deeply. What Bhagavan is seeing is exactly the same as we are seeing. But whereas we see it as this world of multiple names and forms, Bhagavan sees it as I am. This is like saying, if you're walking along a path with Bhagavan in the half light, you see a snake lying on the path. And you say, Bhagavan, do you see that snake? Bhagavan says, yes. But he doesn't see it as a snake. He sees it as a rope. So he's seeing the same thing that we are seeing, but whereas we in our ignorance are seeing it as a snake, he is seeing it only as a rope. So what we are experiencing as this world of multiplicity, all these physical forms and mental forms, all these myriad of forms, is what he sees as I am, which is the infinite and therefore devoid of form.
Michael.
Yes.
Ramana was born somewhere else, but he was drawn to Arunachala. He didn't even know where it was located.
Yes.
So my question is that he came to it. Was that part of his prarabdha karma, you think, or he just didn't have
we can
any
explain,
prarabdha karma?
we can explain it in different ways. Yes, we can say it's prarabdha, but truly speaking, for Bhagavan, there is no prarabdha. Because once ego is all the three karmas are only for ego. When ego is annihilated, then there are no karmas. But we can explain it if we like. We can say, oh yes, it's not the prarabdha of Bhagavan, it's the prarabdha of that body that seems to be Bhagavan. That's one way of taking it. How I would take it, it was Arunachala himself who was born in the form of Bhagavan, in order to reveal what Arunachala was always revealing through silence. Through the form of Bhagavan, he revealed in words. Because we are too dull to understand the silence, but is being taught by, that Arunachala is the silent teaching of Arunachala, we're too dull to understand it because our minds are outward going. It was necessary for Arunachala to appear in human form as Bhagavan in order to tell us to turn within. Because in order to understand the teaching in silence, we need to be silent. we can become silent only by looking deep within ourselves and thereby subsiding into our own heart. Because we ourselves are that silence.
I think the second explanation I like, because he's always been associated with Shiva, the formless.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And that's why Arunachala Shiva and Ramana is also considered Shiva.
Yeah. Arunachala is Bhagavan in hill form. Bhagavan is Arunachala in human form. They are one and the same. The forms may seem to be different, but the reality is the same. And what is that reality? Ariyati Tarajivara Dahavari Jagohail Arivairami Paramatman Arunachala Ramanan. Arunachala is that Paramatma, but is blissfully existing as awareness in the heart of all, in the cave of the heart lotus of all jivas, all different jivas, beginning with Hari. And how do we know that? Parival ulum uruha, heart melting with love. Paranandidu guhayandu, reaching the heart where that supreme dwells. Arivam viri tirava, the eye of awareness opening. Nijam arivai, you will know your real nature. You will know the reality, the truth. Adu Veliam, it will reveal itself. So what Bhagavan first tells us who he actually is. Though he, in our view, he appeared as a person, he is actually that which is shining in our heart as awareness. What awareness? The pure awareness I am. So how do we know him? By qualification, we must melt with love. So with our heart melting with love, we need to look deep within and thereby reach the place where he abides in the very innermost depth of our heart. And there the eye of awareness will be opened and the truth will be known. So Bhagavan says everything there. And in that verse, the question referred to him as Munisan Ramanan or something like that. That is Ramana, the Lord of Munis. He was asked a question in a verse, in the Malayalam verse. He replied, and in his reply, he referred to himself as Arunachala Ramanan, thereby indicating that he and Arunachala are one.
So this is this love that you're talking about. Is that what is the Ramana Hridayam that's oftentimes referred to as in?
The heart means the very center of our being. That center is itself love. That is
right. But there's a particular word that they use, Ramana Hridayam.
Yes, people may use so many words, but there is only, Ramana is the Hridayam, our own heart is Ramana. He is in the heart and he is as the heart, he is the heart. There is no heart other than Ramana. He is the heart of all beings. That's why he says he's existing as awareness in the cave of the heart. What exists in the heart is only the heart. And that is Ramana. That is our natural Ramana.
Thank you, Michael.
All thanks to Bhagavan, because I've just been pointing out what Bhagavan said here, what he said there. I don't know anything myself. I'm just like a parrot pointing out, oh, here Bhagavan said this, here he said that. That's all.
Fortunately, we're all a part of Ted's dream, doing whatever he dictates. So,
oh yeah, we've got another 2 hours. You haven't started your talk yet today.
Yes, I know. Maybe I'll put it off for next time. That talk was supposed to be last time. So last time we failed. This time we failed. Doesn't matter. We're talking about the same. What is the verse we're talking, the paragraph we're to talk about? It's all about happiness. What have we talked today except about happiness? We've talked about Bhagavan. Bhagavan's very name, Ramana, means happiness, means that which makes us happy.
That's great.
Well, I think you can turn that into something practical too. And doubt if there's anybody that would argue here, but every time I hear his name, I feel happy. So
yes. Rami, Rami means making happy. That's all. But in that verse I told you about, Arunachala Ramana verse, he says Arunachala Ramana is the Paramatma, the word that I translated as blissfully exists is Rami. That is, he is rejoicing. It's very hard. It can't be adequately translated, but it means he's rejoicing and making us rejoice. So Ramana means the giver of happiness. Ramana means the Lord, the husband, the lover, the beloved. That's why he says to Arunachala, I called you Ramana. That's such an intimate term of love.
So why do we go after misery? Like this, we all know it makes us so happy.
If you hadn't all been asking me questions, we would have come to the answer. Bhagavan says very simply, because of our aviveka, in that 14th paragraph, Bhagavan gives us the answer. Why do we go after these things? Because of our aviveka, because of our lack of discernment, our lack of judgment, our lack of discrimination. Because we read Bhagavan's teaching, there's not an iota of happiness in the things of the world, he says in this 14th paragraph. But why do we still go out? We say, oh, I've understood there's no happiness in this world. We haven't understood. We are just fooling ourselves if we've understood. If we had truly understood what Bhagavan says in that 14th paragraph, our mind would never go out. But we have understood at the surface level of our mind. That understanding has to become deeply rooted in our heart. It can become deeply rooted in our heart only to the extent to which we look within. The more we look within, the more we are immersing ourselves in the source of all light, all clarity. And so the viveka is generated, or it blossoms in our heart to the extent to which we look within. Because by looking within, we are looking at the source of all light, the light of pure awareness, I am. The more we look at that light, the more we attend to I am, the more we are immersing ourselves in that light. We are bathing in that light. We are cleansing ourselves in that light. And so our mind is clarified. And so the viveka, which is our very nature, clarity of discrimination, blossoms in our heart to the extent to which we look within.
And this aviveka is like a lack of love. It's the same.
Viveka means discernment. If we knew where happiness really lies, we would love to turn only within, because happiness lies only inside. Why do we still have so much liking to go outside? Because of our lack of clarity, we are unable to see, but there is no happiness in these things. Happiness comes only from within. So though we've understood at the surface level of our mind, we haven't truly understood. We can truly understand only by looking within more and more and more, and thereby bathing ourselves in the clarity that is Bhagavan. That clarity alone will cleanse us of all our impurities and all our resultant aviveka. That is the symbolic meaning of going to holy places and taking a bath in the tirtham, in the holy waters, going to Ganga and having a bath in the Ganga. What is the true Ganga? The Ganga is that river of light, but it's ever flowing in our heart as I am. That is the tirtha, the holy water we must immerse ourselves in to cleanse ourselves of the original sin. Bhagavan said, what is the original sin? It is nothing but ego, the false awareness I am this body. So to cleanse ourselves of this original sin, we must bathe in the holy waters in our own heart. The holy waters are that pure awareness I am. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks.
Well, all thanks to Bhagavan, because what have I done? I've just been pointing out what Bhagavan said here, what he said there. I haven't said anything of my own.
I also want to remind Ted that we're recorded now, Ted. So you said you got it, and you're not going to ask that question again. So that remains to be seen.
You almost certainly will ask it again, because we need to hear these things again and again. That is, Bhagavan's teachings are bringing about a complete change in our outlook. So for us to shed our old outlook, our old way of seeing things, our old way of understanding things, our old way of interpreting things, it takes time. So it doesn't matter if you ask the same question any number of times, slowly, by asking Bhagavan these questions and hearing his answer again and again and again, slowly, we are shedding our old preconceptions, and now we are bathing ourselves in the clarity of his teachings.
Yes, and I hit the jackpot asking this question one more time of you again.
Yes, no harm in asking it any number of times. Marty has a very good memory, so he will remember, but I will have forgotten.
I have a good memory. It's just really short.
Yes. Oh, I've got a very good memory, but it's very, very short.
I just realized something. I was named, actually christened Venkata Ramani after Ramana Maharshi.
Right.
And I'm realizing all I have to drop is the I to become Venkat Ramana.
Right. Exactly.